Joining me now to talk a little bit more about the weather is LSU climatologist and WAFB chief meteorologist Jay Grymes. Jay, always a pleasure having you here.
Good to be here, as always.
And you were showing me a couple of graphics online that show that some parts of the state are actually a little bit below or at normal, while other parts of the state have a tremendous abundance of rain.
Yeah, certainly since December, we've got kind of this break point that runs right through the middle of the state. But north of that line, rainfall generally normal to below normal. South of that line, and that line running sort of from, say, Simmsport over to Fort Polk. South of that line, rainfall totals 1, 2, even almost 3 times the normal since the 1st of December. Now, I do want to make it clear, though, that even in northern Louisiana, where it might be a little bit below normal, it's also been much cooler than normal. So the evaporation rates haven't been there. So everybody is looking at soggy fields right now.
Yeah, I was talking to Stephen Logan, who we saw a little earlier in the program, and he was telling me that they've had maybe a week of sunshiny days there in the Arklatex since the beginning of this year. How does that impact the amount of moisture that stays in the ground and on the ground?
Well, the combination creates very soggy conditions, and you can also see it if you look at some of the tributaries to the Red River up there. Many of them are in minor flood right now, and unfortunately there's not a lot of indications that that's going to change up much. We're certainly likely to stay a bit cooler than normal in the coming weeks, maybe even the coming couple of months, and rainfall would have to be actually well below normal for some significant drying, and there's nothing that indicates that. In fact, in the southern part of the state, we expect more than normal rainfall over the coming weeks. So a wet pattern looks to be an issue for agriculture statewide.
And how would that impact planting? I know a lot of folks want to get out there, especially toward the end of February and beginning of March, and start putting corn in the ground.
Well, certainly, I mean, and I'm certainly not a farmer, but when you start dealing with very wet soils, you can't work the fields. That's all there is to it. The good news is that it doesn't look like we're going to have to worry about any kind of moisture shortages when we get into the middle of the summer. The tough part is going to be when are you going to be able to get out into the fields, and more problematic, even if you can get that planting in, is the weather going to cooperate enough so that you don't lose that early planting because of more wet weather.
Occasionally, I actually watch you on TV whenever you're doing your weather reports for WAFB, and I've noticed that you've been pointing out that low southerly jet stream. How is that going to impact us, and also is that indicative of an El Nino year?
That's exactly right, and that's part of the reason. In fact, it's the biggest part of the reason why especially the southern part of the state has been so wet over the last couple of months. Now, Mother Nature's been playing a little bit of a game with us, kind of turning the waterworks on and off. October, very wet. November, dry. December, wet. January, dry, and here we are in February, and particularly the southern part of the state, exceptionally wet through the first half of the month. And most of that wetness in South Louisiana is El Nino, and El Nino's signature is that southern branch of the jet stream. But we've also had another factor that's been playing in our weather this winter that's been keeping it unusually cold. Not record cold, but certainly the winter's shaping up to be probably one of the 10 coolest winters on record. And that is related to that same issue you see in the eastern states where they had too much snow. We've had a persistent trough in the east that brings snow to the east, but that trough with the circulation around it helps pull that Canadian air all the way down to the Gulf Coast. We're expecting that pattern to persist for the coming weeks as well. So even if we hit a dry spell of a week or 2 or even 3 weeks, the cool temperatures are really going to limit how much drying we're going to see in the soils.
Well, hopefully something will change.
Eventually it always does. That's right. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. Jay Grymes, Chief Meteorologist at WAFB and Climatologist with the LSU AgCenter. So, Mike, there you have it. Hopefully we can start getting more sunshine, warmer temps, and a little bit drier weather on the way.
Thanks, Avery.